Well, we pulled it all together somehow on time. It's NFL Inside Blitz Week number 9, and I'm here with Ron and Ted. What's going on your end, Ted?
Well, a lot's going on. I am no longer in the same capacity with Sports USA, so my NFL inside job is now history. 19 years, been there doing it, and some changes over there. Life is timing. What are you going to do, right? So it was a great run, fantastic, but we're moving on. A little weird that it happens in mid-season, but hey, life is timing, so you just roll with the punches. But I'm still going to be doing the same usual thing here, still getting sound and still being very involved with the NFL as closely as possible, and we'll see what the next step happens in my life in that regard.
We still have the Echinacea party with Rogers coming up.
Oh, echinacea. I thought that was for just trying to make you go to sleep at night in your tea. What do I know? You know what? Need to talk to Aaron down the road. Who knows? Maybe we can get something for this show. TBD.
Ron?
Everything good on this end. A little bit backed up at the beginning of the week, so catching up in terms of exactly how I'm going to attack this week's slate. But otherwise, everything's just fine.
Beautiful.
Well, very good. So where are we going to lead off topic-wise? We going to the Las Vegas Raiders story?
Yeah, why not?
Could do that first. Yeah, let's do that first as a bonus topic, and then we'll get to what I think we should do is a topic of the week. And it was a suggestion to talk about quarterbacks per team and the differences. But we know we had breaking news with the Raiders, so Take it away, Ted.
Well, I sort of predicted this in the last few weeks, saying, it should have been the Chargers guy, but because of organizational situations there, and they don't want to eat money, and neither do the Raiders, by the way, but they keep doing it. They're going to still owe John Gruden a ton of money. He's got the lawsuit with the league, and I think they're going to end up settling that the Raiders still going to owe him a lot of money because of the way he got fired. So, well, that's what happens. You sign a guy for 10 years. I don't know what the heck that was all about when he hadn't coached in 10 years or maybe more, right? Anyway, bottom line with the Raiders is they are total flux. Interesting timing. They bring in Antonio Pierce to give him an upgrade from an assistant now to the head coach. His first game is against his old team, the Giants. So I love that timing in that respect. They don't need any extra motivation there. I know Antonio a little bit. He was the head coach of Long Beach Poly here in L.A., and they had some really high draft picks or I should say, not draft picks yet, the really high potential draft picks down the road that the USC was recruiting at the time. And I went down there to interview him. He's a really interesting guy. He had me fired up. Let's put it that way. And I can only imagine wanting to play for this guy. So you bring in Antonio Pierce. A change is usually good with a team, at least in the short term. Then the question is he truly an NFL head coach? I think it was at Arizona State. Herm Edwards brought him in for a short time to be an assistant there. And now he's been up in the NFL. He certainly knows the league. He's highly respected as a player. I actually interviewed him coming off the field for the Super Bowl when they upset the Patriots and killed their perfect season. And I had that story in my book, Touching Greatness, about all that with Eli and the crazy stuff that happened after that game. So I really like Antonio Pierce. Thank you very much for that, Cris. Especially under the circumstances, we might have to do that a little more often. There he is. Anyway, I think it's a good move in the short term. The question is it good in the long term? Who the heck knows? But I did get some comments from some of the guys. You have any thoughts first, Ron and Cris?
I'll defer my comments till the end. A 3-step process I'd like to see the Raiders do. So, Cris, you go.
You wanted the one with the coach first, or which one did you want first?
Yeah, let's hear from Devonte Adams talking about the coaching and the GM change in such a hurry.
Point is, don't get it confused. It's not a celebration that we have a new coach and, there's been changes made. We obviously, I think it was time, one way or the other, it was time for some sort of change, just to bring a little juice in and revitalize the team a little bit. And I think it's more of a mindset that we're trying to, not force, but just have moving forward to just be as positive as possible, and we do have a change. So there's more of a reason, like a definitive shift. We have a thing put in place now where we can say, all right, well, things are different now, but we got an opportunity to change it. So I think that's kind of the mindset we're having, just, trying to have fun and enjoy our time in this building. Because I think, as we speak to each other, it's been too much of this has just been feeling like work too much and not having enough fun. So we just got to get back to that. And, before I say anything else, I just want to say, I really appreciate, Josh and Dave for bringing me here and going through what they went through in order to make this happen for me. And, I'm really appreciative of them because, if they didn't fight as hard as they did to try to make this happen, who knows how it would have, panned out. And it didn't end up being the storybook finish that we all, hope that it would be. But at the end of the day, you got to, you can't live your life saying, what if I would have not came here? What if they would have never, taken the job? You got to make decisions and then live with them, and you live and learn, and you get better. So I just want to throw that out there, that I appreciate them for this opportunity to get here. And as I've said countless times, I want to be a Raider, so I want to try to make this work and do everything I can to keep it going now. At this point,
well, you know what? So there's a great, as they call him, at least in Green Bay, they called him Tay, right, Devonte? He is so open and so honest with his feelings. That's why I wanted to get him on this show today, because he speaks his mind no matter what the circumstances are. He said they needed change. That was obvious. The question was, it wasn't obvious they were going to do that. And so now that change is there. I'm wondering, how is the feeling in the room, Tay? Play it.
It's just different, it's just it's not, it's so new. We don't know if it's better, if it's, whatever, but it's something that's new, kind of like me leaving Green Bay. I didn't know what this will be. And I know there's a bunch of people saying, oh, did you make the right choice? It's like, you don't know, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Maybe it's the right thing, having, Josh going, maybe it's not, we don't know, but having new people in those higher up positions right now is just, it's just something to generate a shift and create some sort of positive flow in this building and get us going in the right direction. Because, it feels like we down and out, and we haven't been playing the ball that we should be playing, but still so much ball left. Like, nothing's done. At the end of the day, we just created a little bit of a tougher opportunity for us, down the stretch. But, as long as you got opportunity, that's all you can ask for. It's just different.
There you go. Okay, so Devonte is open about his feelings. One of the best things about some of the guys on that Vegas roster, they are so candid. One of them is Maxx Crosby. I spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. He was fantastic. He was also on the Vegas website this week. They did a little quick one-on-one with him after the change was made, and he talked about the advantage of Antonio Pierce being an ex-player now as a head coach.
Got obviously a unique perspective on things, being a player and a coach. He's one as a player, he's one as a coach, so he understands both sides of it. So he can relate to the players at a different level. And that's nothing against any other coaches. There's a lot of great coaches that never played a snap of, football, but, AP just has a unique way of getting the room's attention, and he's one of those guys, that unanimously is respected throughout the building. So it's an easy transition for him. He can be a leader in the form of, like, me and him on the sidelines. Like, you could ask him, like, we get into it all the time. Like, it's like a competition. Like, he'll try to get under my skin to piss me off during a game, so he knows how to, flip that trigger, and I'm like, all right, bet. And, like, we go back and forth, but that's how our relationship is, and he knows how to relate on both sides. He can be a coach, he can, relate to you as a player, he can relate to you as a man, so he just, I feel like, he's the right guy to step in, for this job. So I'm excited for him. He's got.
So there you go. So there's another thought, and I think a positive one. I like what Max had to say. Again, I think it's all in the short term. The next thing is X's and O's and how we can run a team. That's a whole different ballgame. Your thoughts, guys?
I agree with what Bertie said. Devonte sounded so happy. And This actually brings up a point, Ron. I don't know what your thoughts are, but this seems to be a reminder that value time is coming, where I think people overreact to what happened in Washington, what's happened in Las Vegas, and what's happened with some teams, basically looking like they're flat on their heels and it's time for them to give up. And these guys are professionals, and this is the time of the year, betting wise, that you can actually start to find some value, because it sounds to me like Devonte and Crosby, they're in good spirits. I watched the way they played on Monday against the Lions, and I wish those guys were on my team. I mean, Jesus. So just something to keep in mind when you're trying to fade teams like Washington and the Raiders and maybe the Vikings. There could be quite a bit of value on those teams.
There was a situation last year. Steve Wilkes took over. Was it in Carolina?
Yes.
He took over one of the teams, and they put, they weren't a good team, and they lost a lot of games, but they, what is that? They covered. Good teams win, great teams cover, whatever you want to say. They played hard for him. There's a clip this week, Devonte Adams shooting free throws in the locker room. They had a net put in, and he was shooting free throws, and he was schooling a guy, and he hit a beautiful shot in the clip. But the smile on his face speaks to what the locker room is now compared to 5 days ago.
Yeah. There's also stress in the room when your head coach is under fire. He knows it. He's trying to get the most out of you, but there's, what the look on his face is like, hey, my job is and my career is on the line here, not just wins. And I think that cloud is removed now. And now they can just go on and do whatever the hell they're up to being capable of doing for the rest of the year. They're still limited, no doubt. And you got a defensive guy becoming a head coach, not one of our favorite things these days. But in the short term, I don't think it's going to matter that much. It's all up to the OC, which they made some changes there too, right? So who knows what that's going to look like. And you got Aiden O'Connell's coming in, and he's going to be the starter for whatever amount of time. Jimmy G is the official backup for now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're going to need data points on how the scheme changes offensively. There's a lot of things that we're going to use after the new coach Spike wears off a little bit.
Right.
So here's my 3-step process, doing the draft and doing everything for 40 years, and you can comment on that. First, a quality GM must be inserted in place who understands draft value, does not take any injury risk, or that old Al Davis, if you're the fastest guy in the combine, you're going to be a Raider. None of that anymore. You now have to conform to, do you have production on the field? Number 2, Cris won't like this one, but there are 3 coaches in mind that the Raiders should consider. One of them is Ben Johnson of Detroit. The other 2, R-rated show today. The other 2 are defensive guys, but they have a lot in common in terms of what they've done for an organization. Lou Anarumo of Cincinnati should be highly considered. And after 3 or 4 years reestablishing what he can do and value to a team, Dan Quinn of Dallas, defensive coordinator, should be considered. Those are the 3 guys I would consider one of those. And then draft-wise, build up the offensive line, build up the defensive line. From the inside out, you want to get that team fired up and ready to go. Add a pass-catching, versatile running back, and then work on the secondary. None of these fluff positions anymore. Those are my 3 steps.
Well, those are 3 steps with 400 different options in there. So, and what they need to do. And I agree with some of that. I'm not a big Dan Quinn fan. He's okay. I'm done with the defensive guys. Don't be shocked if you hear Jim Harbaugh's name thrown out there more than we'd like to. I didn't say you wanted him. I said don't be shocked that that's the way Al Davis's kid thinks. I got to sign this guy to a 50-year contract for $1 billion, and I don't have $4 in my wallet. That's the way they think over there. So who knows? And then the other thing is, do you get the combination? How about the USC coach ending up in Vegas?
Didn't play enough defense for my taste. I mean, you can outscore guys with quality athletes. People have gone from college to the NFL and think you have the same advantage all the way back to Lou Holtz. You don't have that advantage. Bobby Petrino, Steve Spurrier, you can name a list of these guys, these Blitz guys who were able to win in college because the playing fields are different. They're not level like the NFL.
And the word is glitz, and that's what Mark Davis likes. He doesn't know anything about wins. He doesn't know anything about organization. He's the son of a dead rich man. That's it. He doesn't belong there.
I'm more of a Quinn Martin guy, Cannon, Barnaby Jones, that type of thing.
Okay.
A little bit before your time.
Not mine.
So I'm not betting this game. I can't find a rhyme or a reason to do anything on this game. But as you
Daniel
referenced,
Jones,
it's a good opportunity to see what changes are going to be made. And I wouldn't be fading teams that you think are left for dead.
Right.
Is the lesson to be learned.
Right. But Daniel Jones is back for the Giants, though, right? So
yeah. But I could tell you with certainty that had there been no changes made, I would have faded the Raiders in this spot. I have 3 situational indicators, plus a little bit of line value and matchup value with Daniel Jones back. But the new coach spike, the not knowing the scheme, changes the situations. So I'm probably going to be off the game like Cris, has indicated, but I would have been on the New York Giants.
Right. Okay.
Well, sorry.
Well, that's their thing. Let's talk coaches.
Yeah.
It was brought up. I think Cris forwarded me information, and it was brought up either in Discord or
who's this
Pat?
Before you do that, who's this Patrick Graham guy?
Patrick Graham.
Yeah, because he certainly looked over by me.
I believe he's a coordinator.
Okay. Well, if you don't know who he is and I don't know who he is, he's being looked over.
Yeah.
He should feel looked over.
Yeah. These short-term hires and stuff like that, in the long run, there's going to be a change that's more dynamic because, like Ted said, it's the Raiders. They're not going to go for somebody who's not a household name.
Right.
Defensive coordinator. Yeah, I think he's been with 2 or 3 teams.
I don't. They've never impressed me on defense. So quarterbacks, you say?
Quarterbacks. So I don't know how you want to go through this, but we did get a topic suggestion here. So if I throw out a quarterback, you tell me what he's worth to the team. Will Levis versus Ryan Tannehill.
Well, he looked a little choppy last night, but I didn't watch much of the game. But the parts that I saw, he needs some help, doesn't he?
Would you say he's worth I have him worth a point. Tannehill worth a point over Levis. But 2 weeks ago, I would have had Tannehill worth 4 points over Levis. So
I think
Levis
at least a point over. Tannehill's at least a point better than he is, I think.
I think the issue with Tennessee is we already know what Tannehill brings. We already know his ceiling. We already know that, at this stage, he's injury prone. There's not much of a future there, just, past maybe a couple of years max. So you got to try the kid and see what he's got. That's it. There's nothing else to it. They're in a position now. They're probably not going to make the playoffs anyway. You need to know what you got with this guy. And it's a different game. He doesn't have to sit for 3 years, even though he's probably the perfect guy to sit for a couple of years. With the amount of experience he has and the way he slings the ball, he needs to learn a little bit, but he's going to learn the hard way. And I'll tell you what, though, I am so impressed with his arm. I mean, he can sling it just by wrist alone. That guy can throw it 40 yards and right on the money. But he also could have been picked off about 30 times yesterday, and he didn't. So he needs to. His decision making is obviously in question. You talked about it before, Ron. That's part of his MO. And some guys evolve and some guys don't. So we're going to find out about him. That's all. But he's got a hell of an arm.
Yeah, that was never in question. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Minnesota situation, Jaron Hall or Joshua Dobbs. What's the value versus Kirk Cousins? Cris?
At least 4 points, maybe 5.
Yeah, we talked about this
Probably
a little bit on
5.
Tuesday. The market is suggesting 8 or 9 points
What?
based on my power ratings.
Wow.
I'm using 6.5 for Hall. Right now, I would use 4.5 for Dobbs.
I think Dobbs is going to play, though, right? That's what I was leaning that.
He's suited
No, the
up.
other guy is.
Oh, the other guy is definitely going to play?
He's
Start?
going to start.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Okay, so then you need to give us a little more background, Mr. College. Who the hell is this guy?
I think what I said on Tuesday is that wide receivers have to wait for his deep throw. So you're not going to get that deep throw kind of thing.
Because he's
the
not
difference-
capable or he doesn't like to?
It hangs. He's also a shorter quarterback. He doesn't have the arm strength, not at all, compared to a Will Levis or the maturity and when you zing it and when you don't, like Kirk Cousins. So basically, you're talking about a guy who's going to be as raw as can be.
Right.
Obviously, when he gets Jefferson back, he's going to have some wide receivers to work with, but it's a whole different situation. What I like about some of the quarterbacks we're talking about is they threw a lot of passes in college. So they're not gun shy from that standpoint. But there's going to be a difference. And Dobbs, the reason why it's 4.5 versus 6.5 is because Dobbs has escapability in the pocket.
So my question is, why isn't Dobbs playing? Is they just don't feel he knows the offense well enough yet? Or is it, I mean, obviously he's been there for 10 minutes, but that's the kind of guy that you would think would be a plug and play and see what happens. I'd rather have him than some guy that maybe even the coaching staff never heard of.
Well, he is a plug and play. He's been traded twice before.
Right, and he
started twice each time.
So why isn't he playing now?
So, you know what? I'll bet you he's on the bench and ready to go, and they're going to, see what this other guy can do. And hopefully, they're hoping they don't need Dobbs on short notice.
Personally, I wouldn't put Dobbs in the game at all in the first week. I don't want anything. Yeah, I don't think anything that is kind of going to be negative consequences in his head. I want him completely fresh with a full week of game plan and just have that positivity.
That makes sense.
No changes for me with two semi-veteran quarterbacks. What are your thoughts on Taylor or Heineke versus Desmond Ridder? I said no change in my value. You have any change, Cris?
None. No,
I think that. Oh, wait, a real quick thought on that game, though. I want to know your feelings on the change. Too many turnovers. If Ridder played cleaner, I think there's no way you take him out of the lineup because he did some good things, but he kept turning the ball over like 3 times a game, and he can't do that. So is that pretty much the bottom line here?
They had to make the change because of what you're saying, not just turnovers, but red zone turnovers.
Oh, yeah, they were bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see Birdie saying Dobbs, very smart quarterback who will pick it up real quick. He is, but he has limitations. His game is more based on escapability. His yards per completion, not very high. Maybe it improves with Jefferson and the targets that he has in Minnesota. But the offensive line pass protection in Minnesota is rated basically exactly average. Hall, 16.5 rushing yards, juiced to 135. What should we expect? I need a data point before I can put Hall in there in terms of the over-under because they're going to simplify the whole concept. Against Atlanta, sure, you could get outside the pocket and run. Atlanta is a very passive defense. But it's not something I would look at first game out of the box. Speaking of Dobbs, Clayton Tune takes over for him in Arizona with Kyler Murray lurking. I think the market made a 2-point adjustment for Tune under Dobbs in terms of Arizona versus who they play, Cleveland. And there's been another adjustment because Deshaun Watson was announced as a starter now. So we're seeing that line trend up. I'm not exactly sure we should move it up for Watson. I'd like to get your thought because he's he's a fragile guy and we don't know what we're getting for him or so on. But I agree with the 2-point adjustment for Dobbs because you lose his escapability.
Well, there was a very long line. I couldn't even see the end of the line behind me as I was placing Cleveland teaser bets earlier. So they had no choice but to move that line. Cleveland was already a hot teaser pick. And frankly, with that defense, you'd think the Browns are going to find success shutting down Arizona, in Cleveland. But we'll have to see. I think it's a great spot for Cleveland. I'm not sure Watson won't be rusty again, but I think he'll at least be serviceable.
Right. I think you said it all right there. This is all about a guy making his first pro start against a top 3 defense in the league. Good luck with that. That's tough. Any way you look at it. Whoever's playing for Cleveland.
Good news for Watson is they're going to be wide open receivers because Arizona's pass defense is the wrong side of 70%. Cleveland's a funny team. I think I mentioned this on Tuesday. I don't have a great handle on them right now. Maybe because Cleveland itself doesn't have a great handle on what they're trying to accomplish offensively. So as soon as they tell me what they're trying to do, I'll have a better handle.
Yeah, by the way, the Browns are also healthier this week. They get like at least a few guys back that they needed. So everything is totally trending Cleveland here.
I've got an interesting one for you guys. What's the point value Rippin for Stafford?
Wow.
That's a weighted question because we know that Stafford's dinged up. So that's already been baked into the line.
Okay.
So at the very best, you're getting a dinged up Stafford. And they say it's going to be a game time decision. I don't know, but in the reality is a healthy Stafford and Rippon obviously is at least, 5 points, I would think. But in this situation, I think it'll move the needle below the 3 down to like a 1, maybe 1.5.
I think you're right on both points. I show the market changing close to 4 points with Stafford out, but a healthy Stafford for me would be 5.5 to 6 point change.
Yeah, well, good luck with Brett Rippon. What can I say? And Puka's hurt too, by the way. Limited practice with a knee.
Okay. Badgett, Tyler Badgett. We now have 2 games from him. It turns out he's not.
By the way, it's Bagent. He hates Badgett.
Okay. Then let's use
Bagent about that
because I want to be on his good side, Ted.
Exactly.
We've seen him announced as a potential Hall of Fame candidate after game 1, and now just another guy after game 2. So we have 2 data points now. The market is using about a 2-point difference for him versus Justin Fields. But Justin Fields has a much higher ceiling, I think. So it's kind of a loose 2 to me. I think you have to say at least 2. And I agree with the move.
For me, I think it doesn't matter point wise. I think, as you mentioned, the ceiling is higher, but also the bottom is lower. I think you have a narrow variance. What you see is what you get, and he seems at least serviceable. He's not going to do a bunch of dumb things, so. In that respect, you kind of want to see that guy in there rather than a dinged up Fields or but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I was happy to have him in the lineup last week, even though he folded like a cheap napkin against the Chargers.
Yeah, well, that was a bad matchup there.
Horses for courses, because he's going against the New Orleans defense, and that's not going to be easy because with Lattimore in the secondary, I think they're going to bait those rookie quarterbacks.
I cannot believe this. I was just looking at the injury update, and there's like nobody on there. I mean, there's a list of people that are all full practice. I've never seen the Saints healthier. I mean, what a great opportunity this year this week, to get a win under their belt, stay healthy, and keep their progress going.
And they opened up the playbook last week, something I hadn't seen. And what a time to do it against a Colt defense that you want to open up the playbook. Same thing this week. You want to open up the playbook against Chicago. So are we going to see a new styled attack that we haven't seen from the very dull New Orleans Saints with a lot of receivers that have been underutilized? One more quarterback, and we've already touched upon it a little bit. Your changes in terms of O'Connell versus Jimmy G in the lineup.
I think it's a downgrade. I didn't play the game, but I would have dinged it a point. I still think Garoppolo is basically the whipping boy here, getting, just the stepchild taking the blame on it.
For me, the market seems to be about 1.5 point difference, which I agree because Jimmy G's not 100%. At 100%, I'd make it closer to 3, maybe a little bit above 3, because I think based on everything I saw about O'Connell and Purdue, that he is the definition of a statue, a very accurate statue, but he reminds me of Drew Bledsoe, put it that way. And there's a lot to like about Drew Bledsoe. So this is a positive because I think he's a high percentage quarterback. But in today's NFL, is Drew Bledsoe as effective as he was during his era? That would be a question.
Is O'Connell's arm as good as Bledsoe's?
I think the potential is yes.
Okay, because Bledsoe had a hell of an arm.
Yeah.
He's got a nice winery too.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, very big.
He's a great guy too, by the way. I interviewed him one time. Wonderful guy.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for him where he just lost his job the way he did, but you could tell he could care less. He's living life, and I don't know what it was.
He cares less now. He cared a lot then.
Well, I would have, but he's recovered.
Yeah. Oh no, he's good.
And back test a theory. It depends on what theory, Russell. Russell's question up there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get point spread data from different places. You could get pass rush sack data from different places. You can get head coaching data from different places. You just got to know where to look.
Any more QBs?
I think that's good.
Okay, we're going to hide that topic.
Every single year, you got to deal with these backup quarterbacks. And there was a point made a couple of days ago that quarterback play is at its lowest ebb in a long time. When you see if you look at the 32 quarterbacks or 28 quarterbacks that are going to start this week, it's not pretty. And we need a crop that's coming in this year. We need a new crop of quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, but let's talk about that. We have some really, really great quarterbacks that have entered the league over recent years. I mean, just in the last 3 seasons, we have great futures that we're going to watch 15 years of these guys. And we have how many universities? I don't even know how many there are now. How many football programs there are? It has to be 200 of them, right?
Yeah, 131 at the division, at the top division.
So you have all these kids being brought up through Pee Wee, and you got the whole state of Texas with their high school football farms, and all these programs that have all these quarterbacks, all these divisions, 300, 200, whatever. Programs with a couple quarterbacks on each team. How the hell is the drop off so far down between what some of these great guys that have come into the league recently to finding it just an adequate, serviceable backup quarterback? Why is it so difficult? How does this happen?
I think part of the reason goes back to when quarterbacks used to call their own plays and get a feel for the game. Now, all you're doing is this with your microphone saying, what's the play? What's the play? You're not thinking out there. I'd rather have quarterbacks, especially these guys who are, good student athletes and stuff like that, get a feel for how to call the play and how to get into the rhythm and that kind of thing. And we're losing that in the NFL.
We're losing that in every sport because they're taking instinctual out of every vocabulary in sports. You've got to be able to do things on the fly, what comes natural to you. And when you're at your best, the great ones, that's when they are the greatest.
Are there any quarterbacks in the NCAA that call their own plays, or is that just like a rotary telephone concept?
A dinosaur.
It's probably 90-10 in terms of quarterbacks not being allowed to call their own plays, and it's horrible. Yeah. It really stunts their overall growth, and it has them more reactive than proactive. That instinctive nature is so important. It's a chess match out there. You know what you're doing. You got this guy here. You're going to bait them there. I just go back to how Kenny Stabler used to call games under John Madden. And it was just all on his plate. And he could see, he could visualize it. Everything was so slow to him in terms of how easy it was to maneuver the defense.
And Kenny Stabler never heard the word algorithm. So it didn't mean anything to him, right? That was a little after his time.
Unless it was in a bar, no.
Yeah, so analytics and algorithm, boys, changes the world of sports big time for the good and not so good.
Yeah, there's a place and there's not a place, but I think that stunted growth a little bit. I like the quarterbacks that have had a large body of work. And so some of these guys are eventually going to be entrusted to some of that. But we'll see. We'll see what the next generation of head coaches and offensive coordinators brings to the table.
Ted, you can only watch one game this week. What's it going to be?
Cowboys and Eagles. Even though, because I don't want to get up so early for the Germany game. Forget that.
You're on thin ice, Ted.
They can eat all the German sauces they want, but I'll be watching the end of the game.
Who's going to win it?
Which one? Dallas, Philly? I like the Eagles a lot because Cowboys still have to prove to me that they belong with the better teams. And every time they play a really good team, they falter. And why would this be any different at Philly? Jalen Hurts is a little bit, gimpy. He's not 1,000% with the knee. That's been bothering him for a few weeks. But outside of that, it looks like the Eagles are now adjusted to their new coordinators on both sides of the ball, and it's starting to happen. They have the best record in the league, and it's not by accident. And the Cowboys have gotten their asses kicked a couple of times by a really good team that's now faltered, and the Arizona Cardinals, which I still don't understand that game. But anyway. They got to show me. And Dak has won 7 of his last 8 against the Eagles, so it's not like he hasn't done it before. But there's a real show me situation in this game.
Ron, let me trip you up with a question here. If you only had one game to watch this week, what would it be?
Well, I mean, the obvious one would probably be Miami, Kansas City from a viewer standpoint, not at all for me from a betting standpoint.
The Cheetah Bowl.
What the kids are going to do, like 12-hour plane rides and stuff like that, first trip to Germany and all that. I would probably pick Seattle and Baltimore because of the chess match that's involved. I would really like to see what Lamar Jackson is capable of against his defense. I want to see what Seattle has, a kind of a well-rounded team. It's not one-dimensional, and Baltimore thrives on beating one-dimensional teams. Seattle's not one-dimensional. I think there's a ceiling that we're discovering with Geno Smith. Can he touch that ceiling in this particular game? I kind of like the chess match between two good teams, and that's why I would pick Seattle-Baltimore.
And Lamar is 17-1 against the NFC.
Oh,
Will
God.
that continue?
Did you know Randy or Tomlin hasn't had a losing season in Pittsburgh?
That's a little different stat, baby.
No, it's not. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows it, but it's important.
I know. Ron, that's my game too. You stole my thunder. I figured.
See, you should have picked yours first.
I know. I figured you would be on probably. Yeah, you had Minnesota, Atlanta written all over you.
Yeah, right. I love watching Atlanta play passive defense.
By the way, the Ravens a little high at 6, though. Isn't that the number?
6. That's low. They're higher than 6.
Are they really?
Oh, yes.
I thought it was 6.
Where do you have them, Ron?
Oh, where do I have them in terms of what they should be?
Or
Yeah.
where they are?
Where are they? Where do you have them? Where should they be?
4.5. 4.5.
They're 4.5.
No. Ranking. Oh, yeah. You were talking point spread. I thought you were talking league ranking.
No, I'm talking point spread.
What about league ranking, Ron?
Where do I have Baltimore?
Yep.
Tied for second.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
Same here.
But basically, we got 9 teams within 2 points of each other.
Of course.
It's something that Chris and I discussed. I don't think we discussed it on Tuesday. We discussed it yesterday, where the situation is there is no dominant team in the NFL. If you think that automatically, just because you have -7 and you want to tease it down to -0.5 or -1 or something like that, oh, this team's going to win. Not in today's NFL. Yes, San Francisco is going to win if they're at full strength and if they have 7 days off like the other teams, but they're not. They have a -24 rest differential. That's not a good situation. And San Francisco, again, every year, not healthy. What are the other teams? Kansas City. They just lost Nick Bolton. That to me was a tremendous loss. So they're not at full strength. That means 7 points really shouldn't be 7 points. Just be careful because any team can beat almost any other team in the NFL in 2023.
Yeah, San Francisco gets Debo back next week too, though, so that helps.
That will help them
against Jacksonville.
And
more importantly, they would get Trent Williams back, their left tackle.
I think if Baltimore rolls Seattle, they're going to be looking really strong. I don't think that they can roll Seattle. I realize they play man coverage, and that's not good facing Jackson. But I think Baltimore is the best team in the AFC at the moment. If they can stay healthy, and they're better than San Francisco when not healthy, in my opinion. So if San Francisco's missing a Debo or a McCaffrey, they're not the best team. They drop quick, and they don't have the depth to cover themselves up. But I don't think Baltimore's going to be able to remain healthy because they never are. They're healthy now, and they could steamroll some teams. But I'm shocked, absolutely shocked, that this line is holding at 6. It's so disrespectful to Seattle. They'll know it. Carroll is one of those coaches that when he's the underdog and you expect nothing from them, they show up, and they've demonstrated that they show up on the East Coast when this happens. And we know Baltimore just loves to sit there and squat and lay a turd on their home field and have a shitty game when you least expect it. So they're either very good or just bad. And
okay, so that's my question. Are you surprised that Baltimore is at 6? It seems like it should be lower.
The answer is yes.
It should be lower.
So did you take it already?
It should be 4.
Did you take it already is the question.
I keep taking it, and they keep on laughing.
You keep adding?
Yeah, they keep on raising it. I have 6.5 in pocket.
That's great. Yeah. And by the way, go ahead, Ron.
No, I just say your question, teed up Chris without you knowing it teed up Chris.
Well, I didn't know what you guys were thinking when I said, "Are you surprised at 6?" And you went off on a tangent about their rating
because he was thinking about your ranking and stuff like that.
No. And the other thing is Seattle's banged up in receivers. Metcalf and Lockett, they're both probably going to play, but they are hurt. Metcalf's got a hip problem. Lockett is, I don't know, something leg, knee. I don't remember what it is, but they're not close to 100% with the great Geno Smith throwing to them.
Yeah, well, if they just do their job, catch the ball, and avoid the other players, then they won't be injured.
Now you tell them. Where were you last week when they needed you to say that?
I'm not worried about Lockett. I think he's healthy enough, and Lockett is the most intriguing matchup in this thing because he is one of my favorite players. He just finds a way to make the impossible catch on that 40-yard bomb. And games are won and lost like this on 2 or 3 plays. If Lockett makes one of those receptions that he's pretty famous for, it tilts the game into a toss-up.
Yeah. And by the way, Cris, are you aware that Lamar Jackson has won 17 of 18 in the NFC? I just want to double check that. Look at the look on his face.
Justin says, sounds like you guys are making a case for under 44.5. Which game are we talking
Baltimore,
about?
I assume you mean? I think he means Baltimore, Seattle.
Yeah. Okay. So there is some 44.5. I'm making no case on that. I have no opinion on that. How about you, Cris?
Well, I'll take some 44.5 because it doesn't exist anywhere, but it's down to it's hilarious. It's 44 every single place.
Wow.
Okay.
On a Friday, you never see that. Jesus.
Yeah. I have no opinion on that particular one. I think Bertie mentioned, or one of Russell
I like
mentioned,
the over. I think both teams are going to score.
that San Francisco game against Jacksonville next week with arrested San Francisco could be an outstanding game.
Oh, it should be.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. One thing that we haven't talked about was the potential that Andy Reid will be sleeping throughout his entire game because of jet lag. The Chiefs have left later than most teams do to go to Germany. And sometimes jet lag is an issue when they've done that in the past. So just throwing it out there.
And they were all the way out here, in the Pacific time zone, weren't they? So they crossed the country.
They were in Denver.
They were in Denver.
Yeah.
What time zone are they? Are we doing daylight savings this week?
That's mountain time. Yes,
yeah, we are.
Saturday
We pick up an hour, which I appreciate.
When are they going to stop this crap? I mean, what a waste of money. You know how much
we're
money
long-
it costs to change
When we're
clock?
dead, Cris, is when they're going to change it.
Move to Arizona, you don't have to deal with it.
Or Indiana, I think is the other one, right?
Indiana. But the story about Indiana was great, that they used to have part was on a different time zone in Indiana.
Right, exactly.
And it cut right in the middle of a high school gymnasium.
What?
Yeah, it was a fascinating story.
So when they played basketball, we're like one side of the court, they were on a different time, and they changed the clock.
The city itself, it was one of the most fun. It's been 15 years since I read the story, but it was one of the most fascinating and funny stories I read about how towns in Indiana dealt with that.
It's all about
well, I've got one for you. I'm pretty sure it was Myanmar. They change the clock by 30 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, so they don't go a whole hour.
Yeah.
So, how do they come up with that one?
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the thinking behind it? Have you ever seen it?
I don't.
I've heard that
no
story,
logic,
but I didn't know from where.
Ask questions when you're there.
Monday Night Football.
Yes.
Ed, you start. Impressions of what your Chargers and the Jets are going to be like.
Maybe finally the last game for the Chargers coach. If he loses this one,
I don't
know. We had the punt bowl between the Giants and the Jets last week. Nobody could score. That's got to be. That should be like a half a win. That doesn't even deserve a full win in the standings for the Jets. Look, I don't know what to think. The Chargers going back there, I don't trust their defense. You already know what I think about their coaching. It should be a win for the Chargers in my mind if things were normal, but there's nothing normal, and it's over 3. It's still at least 3.5, right?
Yeah.
I got to take the points. I don't care what the hell's going on. Even a picture of Aaron Rodgers limping on the sideline is worth a half a point in this game.
Chris?
That is the other game. The line makes no sense to me whatsoever. I think I don't understand it. The Chargers get a win, and all of a sudden, they get a win against a bad team. They're supposed to beat that team. They benefited from a horrible call early in the game that would have changed the flow anyway. So we didn't even get a chance to see them play a real game. Eckler's back. People have high expectations of the Chargers now.
Because they beat the Bears? Congratulations.
I can't get there. I can't get there at all. I'm shocked. If you would have told me a week ago that this line would hold 3, I would have laughed. And it's holding 3.5. So
okay, hypothetical, guys. If the Bears made it a close game last week, what would the spread be in this game? 1.5.
To me, it wouldn't have changed. My power rating wouldn't
Not
have
at all?
changed on the Chargers. It wouldn't have changed. Now, I didn't have I have the line definitely under 3, but my power rating wouldn't have changed whether the Chargers won closer or not.
But how much of this is, though, the typical carryover of, wow, the Chargers finally woke up and look at what they did to the Bears. I thought they were going to do that to the Bears and a high school quarterback who we never heard of. I mean,
I'll take the other view. I think this is a product of the Jets looking so horrible against the Giants. That's why we're getting the extra thing.
It's both.
And but the thing is, and I said this on Tuesday, and then Steve Fizzik said the same thing on Wednesday, but it's true. I get patent on this, though. What the Giants did to lose that game was criminal.
Oh,
because basically all the Giants had to do was have defensive holding. And you get 5 yards at a pop, you get a warning and stuff like that. There are different ways to make 20 seconds go away so that you're not in field position to get a field goal. What the Giants did, same thing with Buffalo and Cincinnati in that playoff game, that great playoff game, is they didn't use the rules to their advantage.
Yep. Well, like I said, that win last week should say a half a win in the standings.
Yeah,
because that was a joke.
It was crazy. I think we're catching Cris live betting right now. So
no, I was checking. I was checking some health information, and
how is your health?
Everything? It's a little early for. It's a little early to get it. So.
Yeah, we're about a half hour away from getting it.
Oh, I thought we were going to get a little bit in the game.
We have a couple of players out that I know of that are interesting. Okay. Drake London is out for Atlanta.
Yep.
And that does mean something. He's their lead wide receiver.
Yep.
And what is his name? Curtis Samuel.
Oh, Curtis
Samuel. He's out for Washington.
Yes, he is.
He's not worth a lot, but it is another guy, and he's kind of a little gadget guy. Sometimes he also carries the ball.
Yeah, he's their second leading receiver too,
Yeah. So those are the two I know about.
Okay. Yeah,
so,
those are for sure.
Birdie thinks the Saints are complete frauds. Do you agree, Ron?
No, I think they're not playing to their potential, but their potential is to be a better power-rated team than they are. I don't know if that makes some sense. I think they have the personnel to be clearly the best team in that division, but they've been playing down to it for so long. And last week they played up to it.
Yeah. I'm disappointed in Derek Carr myself. I thought he'd be better at this point. Again, playing for a defensive head coach, not the best thing in the world for him, but I thought this would be a good spot, a good landing spot for him over the long haul. And by midseason, he would be better. And he's just all over the place. You never know what you're going to get from him from quarter to quarter.
Yeah, but I think that he's been so vocal. You've seen his body language on the sideline that he finally just said to the coordinator, let's air it out.
No, absolutely.
And that's what they did. And I think you're going to see that same bounce this week. Well, you should, because it's the Bears.
Exactly.
I think anybody that doesn't realize the Saints have some tools. Now that they're healthy again, people forget Thomas and Kamara, and Kamara's been one of the best in the league since he came back from suspension.
Yeah.
If Carr just is you intimated, we expect better things from Carr, and I think we'll get him.
I think we're going to get play the overs on Chris Olave this week. He just put it up. That's what I was thinking. Olave's the guy this week. He's going to have a ton of catches, and against that Bears defense, I don't even know if the letter D belongs in defense with that team. They stink, and they showed it last week against the Chargers, and that might have been the official give up factor for that side of the ball, they could get hammered this week.
They could
On the road again too, back to back.
Do you think the Arizona Cardinals have any hope? No, we talked about that earlier.
In the next 10 years or this year?
I would say they need help from friends. They need Deshaun Watson to throw one of those dink and dunk little things or get sacked, because his assertiveness in the pocket has been below par. And so if you're talking about a guy who's not trusting reads, like really Deshaun Watson hasn't trusted his reads until the last game before he got hurt. He started to be more assertive in the pocket. If Deshaun Watson is willing to give this game away, yes, Arizona has a chance.
Yeah. My only issue is Cleveland finds a way to make every game closer than it should be.
They sure do.
Every single damn game. This game, guys, I think if they don't pull okay, let's keep it close within a touchdown, I think they win it by 20.
They should. Ron, do you have any opinion on the Notre Dame Clemson clash?
Well, Clemson did its thing last week, so that was one of the most important games of the year. Clemson's 4-4. They'll get up for Notre Dame. This is a big game for Notre Dame. Yes, I do have an opinion, and the opinion on the game is I need to see this is an in-game betting scenario for me. If Clemson gets down, I don't think they have the quarterback. I don't think they have the offense. I don't think they have the words that you were using before, that ingenuity kind of thing, that creativity to come back against a Notre Dame defense that's fundamentally sound. If Clemson plays them toe-to-toe as the home underdog, if you see a 7-7 game with 8 minutes left in the second quarter, so you got 40 minutes plus, around 40 minutes left, then I think I think it's a typical Notre Dame game. It comes down to which kicker doesn't miss, because both kickers are terrible this year. It's not which kicker will make it, which kicker doesn't miss. But if Clemson gets behind 7-0, I think it stays that way.
We were talking about, I might as well fess up and confess to everybody here, because we were talking about NCAA. I do pretty darn well in NCAA. I have 57% over the last 420 games. And I was admitting to Ron, I can't name more than a couple of players out of all those teams. I can't name them. I can't name more than 4 or 5 head coaches. I know nothing. I'm doing everything by metrics, and it's going well. Some way, somehow. So that's why we don't talk about the college football as much, because Ron knows it fluently, and I have an infantile knowledge of what's going on with the actual human beings involved. So I'm just going by numbers. I was shocked because I looked at that line and I said, how the hell can Notre Dame only be -3? It's going to be the lock of the century. And then I take a look at my numbers and it's like, oh, okay. So,
well, I think
I'm
your
waiting
numbers
for that 3.5 to pop up, and it's going to make me sick to do it, but I'll play Clemson.
I think all your numbers, Chris, are in the transfer portal. That's why you can't. All this stuff means nothing to you, these names.
City by the Bay thinks +8.5 for the Browns is a bit high. Well, go ahead and grab that 10, because it's 10, not 8.5.
Ted, you said something interesting.
Finally.
Transfer portal and Clemson are like oil and water. That's the area that Dabo Sweeney has swore not to use the transfer portal. Yes. And after this year, that's got to change.
Until he needs it.
He needs it because he has said that's not the way we do business. And he's watching. And unfortunately for him and for the NCAA, which is killing the sport, in my opinion, is that the transfer portal is how you do business in 2022, 2023, and moving forward. And Clemson doesn't do business that way, and they're 4-4.
Yeah. A couple of quick thoughts on QBs again, guys. The one's trending upwards and way downwards. Jordan Love in Green Bay looks like he absolutely needs a transfer portal.
Yes, he
to
does.
to the minors somewhere. Is there a AAA that he can go to get some seasoning for a while? And Joe Burrow looks like all world again. What a difference a little bit of a healthy leg makes. He looks so great. That's the team to watch. Again, same stuff as long as their O-line holds up.
City by the Bay's play of the week sucks because the line is not 10.5 minus 110. It's 12.5 over.
Wow.
And if you can find the 10.5, you're going to be paying an arm and a leg and a ear.
I would argue that 10.5 first half and 12.5 first half is very minimal difference because
It is.
you'd have to be creative to get 11 points in the first half or 12. You need a couple field goals, a touchdown, a missed 2-pointer, and you need a safety to get to 11 unless you're going to go
for
one
2.
of those 8-3.
Miami
Yeah, you can go 8-3. Yeah.
Yeah, 8 and 3 gets the 11, and Miami goes for 2 a lot.
Yeah. I guess in this day and age, it's possible, but it's probably not worth the juice that you're doing all that stuff with. So who knows? The quarterbacks you mentioned, Ted, absolutely. This is a very critical game for Jordan Love, a home game versus a reeling Ram team. Are you going to play passive and just hope the Rams make mistakes with their backup quarterback and stuff? Or are you going to show us more than 57% completion? Very important. And Joe Burrow, Buffalo's pass defense is not good. And they just signed Rasul Douglas, which is a very important addition. Not because he makes up for Tre'Davious White or Matt Milano at linebacker, but because he does some compensation for them because of his years of experience. And Buffalo needed that really, really badly because Joe Burrow, if Buffalo plays defense like the last 3 weeks, then Buffalo's going to need to play offense at a very high level and make this a shootout.
Exactly. And if you're only laying 2 points, I know we've talked about it for hundreds of years, Ron. Just because it's a big game and it's a Sunday night game all alone and all that, people got to have a side and you got to have action, whatever. But this is one of the plays of the week. To me, Cincinnati -2, the way they're playing against that defense, I'd take my chances every single time.
I do want to address that because part of what we talked about we would do is that Cris would give a handicap tip and I would give some handicapping methodology. So my methodology is basically talking about I use power ratings, I use matchup analysis, and I use situational factors. So to your point, the power ratings would not pick Cincinnati in this game. Even though I was ahead of the curve with Cincinnati, you'd have to jump them up artificially to make it the number that it is. Cris and I talked about that, and maybe he was surprised that I said, no, Cincinnati would not be the right play based on the number because you can't artificially move them up based on where they've been. You can artificially move Burrow up because you could throw out his first 3 games, and I suggested as such, and you should throw it out. But you can't throw out the fact that Cincinnati's power rating is based on their run defense isn't as good as people think it is. Joe Mixon is a one-dimensional runner for the most part. There's other interchangeable thoughts.
Run defense you don't need against Buffalo, though.
Situationally, you can make a case for Cincinnati. Matchup, you can make a little bit of a case for Cincinnati, but you can also make a case that Josh Allen will be running in this game because it is a standalone Sunday night game, and he's not going to look at the narrative and say, I'm not going to throw my body into the mix. He will. This is a hard game to handicap because the power ratings do not support.
Okay,
Cincinnati.
I actually disagree with what you just said. I think it's less of a chance for Josh Allen to run in this game because he's got a shoulder problem and it's been bothering him, and that could make it worse. You do not want to get hit in this game.
So that's going to be interesting because I think his over-under for – I'm not necessarily playing it because I don't like overs, and I'm hitting about 50% with overplays, even though on shows and on Twitter it seems like I'm hitting 100%. Believe me, the stuff I don't give out is not hitting 100%. I'm being very, I can pad my
Give out
record.
everything you have.
I'm devaluing my record.
The wheel and key, baby.
But I will tell you that I do believe Josh Allen will run more than the usual 4.5, 5.5 posting that he's been showing.
I don't think so, unless
Chris,
they give it to him.
Your thoughts on this game?
Well, Buffalo clearly is the side here based on what I have. And I have to make an absurd adjustment, manual adjustment. And by anybody's measure, that's not enough. So
what do you mean absurd in what way?
Just because the numbers were so bad for the Bengals to start the season that they're still skewed, like, off the reservation unreasonably. So, but how much can you really manually move it reasonably? Because hidden within that outlier status is legitimate faults, as Ron alluded to, where Buffalo is the better team coming into this game. Cincinnati could blow them out. It's not going to surprise me. I have no straight money on the Bills. I was too much of a wussy because I think Cincinnati can win this game, and I'm just hoping that they can keep it close. So I have Buffalo in teasers, but I was supposed to play Buffalo straight. I don't have any confidence in him, and I'm curious, how much is he going to help on the defense, the guy that they picked up? Is he going to be able to help this week, or is he going to be a fish out of water?
I think he'll help.
It adds variability. We don't know. There's some variance that he may not be in the right position at the right time because he doesn't know his teammates. Right. Part of the position he plays is knowing where the other people in the secondary are going to be. Is he going to be an upgrade on what they have? Athletically and experience-wise, yes. But, Joe Burrow is not your average quarterback, so he could find some holes in the seam.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying Miami, Kansas City, and Buffalo, Cincinnati are fascinating games that the public is going to love, and I'm going to sit back and watch.
Okay. Now, when you come down to your ratings and your numbers that you come up with for the odds, there's no way to put in that Cincinnati has been a second half team over the last few years, and they're starting it again. I mean, how do you put that? How do you factor that into numbers when it looks like they're pretty much doing the same thing over? They're healthy. They're smart. They know what their strengths are. By the way, we talk about their defense. I think they're third overall in defense now in the league. I'm pretty sure that's the number in overall defense, and their offense has picked up so much. They got 9 offensive TDs over the last 3 games when they had nothing before that, right?
Chris and I would disagree with the number 3 defense there.
What?
So,
they wouldn't switch games.
Yeah, they wouldn't be close with that. In terms of, I will say that Cincinnati has been over the last 3 years one of the most healthy teams I've ever seen.
Yep.
In this league, that's hard to do. One of the reasons Cincinnati is better in the second half, the last 2 years, because Burrow had an appendectomy, I believe, in 2022 before the season. Then he had all these injuries now. So he never got to peak form until after the bye week to begin with. That helped. Right. And the other thing is that they're succession planning. They do a great job in the draft. So they had to replace Jesse Bates, for example, in the defensive secondary this year. They had to place a couple people on the defensive line last year. They replaced their 3 members of the offensive line last year. These things take time. So it's just a coincidence that they needed time to gel. And this is what happens. You play together a longer period of time and you get better.
Well, it's coincidence. It's also, health too. Obviously, if he stayed the way he was the first few weeks of the year, they'd be doing nothing because they couldn't move the ball before. And now you got, the mix of, excuse the pun there, the mix of Mixon and what he's capable of doing. And by the way, that third in offense and third in defense, I believe, is over the last month in the league. So
Oh,
that's
it's
where
improved. Chris will
Yeah.
agree with that. It's
well, that's what I
improved.
mean. Not from week 1, but I'm talking about the last month. But again, those are numbers that are real. They've turned things around. Now that, are they going to do it in the next 8 weeks? Who knows? But, I'm just saying.
This will be a shootout.
Right, Chris?
Chris, you got any handicapping tip to give to the loyal audience?
I gave that good tip earlier of don't leave these teams that look like they're ready to fold up shop for dead. I think we had a question about Minnesota and their value this week. I think they were great value. They're still value at 4, I believe. So these teams that they get these injuries, or they trade away the players, or their record looks anemic and there's no coming back from it. They're professionals trying to stay in the league, earn roster or keeps roster spots. When these new players come in, they bust their hump. And as Ron mentioned earlier, when Carolina traded McCaffrey, they went on a run, cover. And you see a lot of similar situations. So keep your eyes open for that. The more painful it is to bet a team, the better off you probably are.
Yeah. No, I agree with everything you say, but I think there could be one exception. We're going to find out this week. I think the Bears may have already packed it in, and they might be dead from here on, but we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, they just picked up a pass rusher, which is a little bit weird that they would do that when they're rebuilding team.
Totally strange. No, but they signed him to a long-term deal and all that, so they're looking ahead, right?
Have they signed him to a long-term deal?
I thought they did. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay.
I think
I think they have the opportunity to do that, and we're assuming that they're going to do that with their 2 first-round picks next year. That would help jumpstart the franchise
and their new head coach next year.
And whatever they're going through. But I mean, Chicago just is running into a tough opponent, that's for sure. And one thing Chris and I talked about on Tuesday is that when you see a Kirk Cousins injury, the defense tends to rally, saying we've got to play tougher, we've got to get off the field, we can't allow different things. You tend to see lower scoring games when the team tries to rally. And that happened with Carolina, a lot of low-scoring games last year.
Yeah. I'll comment, since these comments can kind of touch on what we've been talking about. When you're looking at the Saints, number 1, last 5 weeks. I didn't even realize that they're the number 1 gainer over the last 5 weeks. They're on a missile upward. And the comments section was praising Jacksonville. They're number 2. And one of the reasons why I don't understand the Monday Night Football line, the Jets are number 3, believe it or not, even through that mess of a game last week. Washington is up there, believe it or not. So I kind of, that bodes well for their chances of covering this week. Another team that we put in the category of, they're done. They traded away their players. Hey, what do you think they're doing? Putting popsicle sticks out there instead? Those are players trying to earn roster spots. So there'll be players filling in for those traded players, and they played football before, so they might be able to help. Let's look at the other side. Arizona, dead last. Tennessee, second from last, and they showed why last night, but at least they covered a teaser. Tampa Bay. I'm going against Tampa Bay this week, and they are 29th. New England, all the way down there, 28th, facing Washington up there at the top. Kansas City, the Kansas City and Miami are mirror images. Miami 5th from the top, Kansas City 5th from the bottom. Here's another mirror image. 7th from the top, Cincinnati facing 7th from the bottom, Buffalo. So just a few notes from tracking the last 5 weeks' history.
Good. Well, looking forward to seeing the last quarter of the Cheetah Bowl, Tyreek Hill against Kansas City.
The Lions +1 versus the Chargers.
Really?
That's in LA, obviously.
That's next week?
I don't know, when is that?
I don't know. I haven't paid attention to that. Jared Goff back in LA. Wow. Exciting.
I'm all out. I've got, I think
done?
we covered a lot.
All right,
Yeah,
guys. Well, enjoy.
That might be the bettable line, but if that's the bettable line, I'll be two-fisted to bet the Lions.
Gee, what a shock.
I know.
Well, guys, a great show, and I want to thank everybody out there for your nice comments. My radio stuff, it's on to bigger and hopefully better things. TBD, but we're gonna have fun every Friday, any way you look at it.
Well, we appreciate everybody joining. Ron, I'll be talking to you. Ted, I'll be avoiding you. And
Get in line, baby.
I think there's a lot of interesting games this week, and looking forward to some of them. There's some garbage, but hope everybody has a good week. Feel free to stop back Tuesday when Ron and I return at noon, and we'll be back same time noon next Friday. And next Wednesday, I'll be same time, noon on Wednesday for Bet US.
Nope, won't be same time
And-
because the time change.
If you want some NCAA talk, I'll be on in less than an hour with Jeff Dawson on the East Coast guys. So anybody interested in NCAA, I'll be back.
Sounds good, boys.
Cheers, everybody.
Later.